women's, and first of all, the Chinese men's team keeping up the trend so far of the Olympic teams being named where the men are messy queens full of drama.
Remember, the show is PG-13, so you might hear a naughty word or two. This month, Tumble Track is having 10% off carpet-bonded foam, and they're having a June celebration. So if you need a beam in your living room or an air floor on your lawn or all the things for the gym, it's on sale. Visit Tumble Track at TUMBLTRAK tumbletrack.com. Train smart. Olympic teams are being named. Therefore, it is time to talk about grown-ass women. Becky Downie made her third Olympic team at age 32. Ellie Black made her fourth Olympic team at age 28. We have the Chinese Olympic team. And Dr. Laura Cappelle is back from the Sorbonne Nouveau 3 in Paris to talk all about the Artistry checklist. It's June 17th, 2024, and welcome to the number one gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm Jessica, and I'm here with Spencer from the Balance Beam Situation. And if you're not familiar with the Balance Beam Situation, Spencer has a clickable code of points. Say that 100 times fast. Clickable code of points. So if you're like a Rikna, a Stalder Boobity Bub, what is that? You can just look it up at the Balance Beam Situations clickable code of points. I use it often. I highly recommend it. Thank you, Spencer, for your service.
Oh, you're very welcome.
The most important thing that happened this week is we just got the Chinese Olympic team.
Yes. And first, men's and women's, and first of all, the Chinese men's team keeping up the trend so far of the Olympic teams being named where the men are messy queens full of drama, and the women's teams are kind of predictable or normal or make sense, because China not naming Shi Song, national all-around champion on the men's side, to the team. So that's kind of a big deal. Women's team, Qiyuan of Bars Amazing and also Beck Handspring Arabian series on Beam, who we've talked about, from being obsessed with her last year. Yaqin, breakout star of Worlds last year. Amazing on Beam and Floor in particular. Yushan, been on every team since the Tokyo Olympics. Zhang Yihan, new senior. Very exciting. The upstart on the team. And Huan, age 24, the veteran, returning to national prominence and making the 2024 Olympic team, which I would also not have called a year ago. So that's very exciting.
I just want to talk about Qiyuan's flip-flop Arabian to split jump. It's not like she hasn't done it before, but let's just look at it for a second, because
let's talk about it for like 9 more hours.
Let's just talk about it forever. I know, like, this is the beginning of me, just like every time she does it, the beginning of me constantly talking about it and how it's connected and it's so good. I mean, she's going to get a deduction for a low squat, but it's perfectly connected, no problem. But what I really want to talk about, Spencer, is how her mount sequence is a flip-flop onto the beam, immediate straddle jump to double stag in ring. So split leap, both legs bent. I know you know what it is, but for the people that are new.
Yeah, I was just supporting your conversation, so you felt validated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I was being an audience member. I was like,
Thank you.
Yes, Jessica, I know what you're talking about. Good job.
Thank you. So the thing is she does flip-flop, straddle jump, double ring. I'm calling it a double ring. And then what if she connects it directly into back handspring Arabian split jump?
The possibilities are endless.
Like, would that give her a 117 start value?
I mean, she got a 7.0 D at Chinese Nationals.
Which is...
Yeah. Already has. It's going to be the competition between Chu and Zhou to see who has the higher D at the Olympics, because they both have potential 7s, but it's very dependent on, connection value, what you get credited on any given day. Did you have a little wobble in your series bonus? So there's a wide range of D scores that they could get. But we would anticipate them having the 2 highest beam D scores at the Olympics, should they, hit their routine and do what is intended. So with Zhou Yaqin, I'm trying to get the nickname of NBC's Nightmare started for Zhou Yaqin because first of all, I'm picking her to win. Right now I'm picking her to win beam gold.
Okay.
And so that's like, not Suni or Simone. I'm picking Zhou right now.
Right.
Mostly because of her handspring front tuck combination with toes pointed in the front tuck, Jessica.
So good.
But also she's going to, in the like, foreseeing very obvious controversies that are going to happen at the Olympics, which is one of our specialties, our very obvious controversy radar. Like Zhou is going to do a floor routine that opens with a double tuck, and she is going to outscore US gymnasts doing floor routines that open with a double double or a double lay full or like a Moores if you're Jade. And there's going to be like, 4-year upset confusion style, and we're going to have to be like, actually, this happened last year also, and everyone saw it coming. But that's what's going to happen. By the way, that's what's going to happen. But that is my, my foreseeing a controversy, because Zhou Yaqin scores incredibly well on floor because of what you're supposed to do on floor right now, which is like a really clean double tuck.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, I just watched the Arabians, the Romanians. Doing their, I never quite know what's going on in Romania. It's like there's a trial, but then there's something else, and then people sit out and etc. But
and then we have to call Ponor to see who should be on the team. Yeah, I just don't worry about it.
But Nadia was there. It was lovely.
Thank God Nadia was there.
I know. God, Nadia just be like, everyone calm down. It's going to be fine. But the routines do not disappoint. We're getting all of the pain of a nation combined with the musicality of a great Broadway musical. Is that of an incredible ballet?
Love Jessica's famous love of musicals meant that she couldn't come up with the name of one.
Stomp.
That's what you would do.
We have good musicality in Stomp. The whole thing is the
You're going with Stomp.
Well, I didn't want to say cats because that's the only one I can think of that they dance
really
a lot.
Bad, yeah.
Hair spray. There's a lot of dancing.
Both of those exist.
Yeah. I've seen so many.
You just love them. Loves musicals.
But back to China.
And not Stomp.
No. Anyone else you want to talk about? Oh, we talk about the vaults? They're trying with the vaults.
Oh, the vaults are going to get... Okay, so the one thing, even though I think this is an advisable selection for the Chinese Olympic team for who's available, it does pain me a little bit that Zhang Qingyang is just an alternate on this team. We loved her last year. She was on the World's team. Basically now most known for the controversy over her back dive on beam that was credited as a fall onto the beam sometimes and sometimes not, even though it was the same every time. And I think she got kind of hosed by routine evaluation. And so I wanted another opportunity for her to be like, actually, this is my story. And she went for it. She was doing that Rudy. She was like, you need vaults. I'm going to try to do a Rudy. But it was like, no, Rudy's not going to get a score. So unfortunately, she did not make the team this time, but they're going for it. They're going for it. We hope it's not a Tokyo Olympic situation where it's like, we all have Yurchenko double fulls. And then you get to the team final and it's like, we all fell on our Yurchenko double fulls.
Yeah.
But they have to push the difficulty. There's no other option. They have to try to find the difficulty on vault.
Yep. Anyone else you want to talk about on the team?
I mean, I want to talk about this team for 9 hours again, but Huan, we need to talk about because age 24, making the Chinese Olympic team and Jessica's grown-ass women trend. Yeah. So Luo, when she first burst onto the scene, alternate on the Rio Olympic team.
Spencer, hold on. Did you just say burst onto the scene?
Oh, we're not allowed to say that? Is that right? That's
Spencer,
not allowed?
Isn't that in our band list?
I think that might be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who can remember these things?
It's okay. I'm here with the sound effects to help you along.
Good.
Yeah.
Where would you be if I didn't say things that you could give sound effects to?
I know. I'm totally lost.
Okay. When Huan became a senior elite gymnast.
Yes.
Had great success. Right away, alternate on the Rio team. 2017 national champion, 2018 national champion, but then sort of faded from the team picture. She was still competing, but wasn't in major contention for the team. Last year at nationals, she got a literal 9 on bars and finished 37th in the all-around and didn't make the all-around final at just Chinese nationals. And it was sort of like, oh, it's nice that she's still competing. I'm glad she's sticking around, but her days of contending for teams are over. And she was like, actually, no, I'm going to come back and make the Olympic team. So that's very exciting. And I think it's a good call in terms of team selection and what she can cover, because she provides, most of all, though floor is not like her main event, bars and beam, I think, are stronger events. She provides a good plan B on floor, like an Yushan plan B. Because the thing with Yushan is that she's been on, every team this quad, the last Olympic team, always comes in with the potential highest difficulty and best floor score for China. Oftentimes with a whip triple full that's like amazing at Chinese nationals. And we're like, oh my God. And then she'll go to, by the time the Worlds or Olympics rolls around, it's either she's too injured to do it or it's really inconsistent. And we've seen that, championship after championship where at least, maybe it's good in qualification, but then in the team final, it's not a score. With low, you have another person who can go if like, it's not happening for Yushan and her floor. Like, and it's another like mount with a beautiful double tuck and she's going to get a sneaky 13. Routine, but it's a possibility, and I like that there's a little more reliable coverage on floor on this year's Chinese team that I think is a positive.
And we need to talk about the free hip Nabieva that might be the most laid out, most pointed toes, most like open hips over the bar, tight arch the whole way over, drop down to it's so good.
Yes, this is Zhang Yihan, new senior, now is eponymous, clear hip Nabieva. Great on bars. Bars in itself, being great on bars is not enough to make a Chinese Olympic team right now. The big thing for her is the emergence of her souk double twist, which is something I'm keeping an eye on because she's landing it very well under control lately in what we've seen. But it is, she is finishing that twist within a nanosecond of the mat. And I'm worried about it, interested in it. If she's landing it the way we've seen her land it, like getting it done, but getting it done under control, that's a very useful score. Oftentimes going to the Olympics, a different context is another prospect. So I think it's good for China to go for it. They need that vault. I also hope there is a willingness, if it's not there, like you get to the Olympics and in training, maybe in qualification, it's not there. I hope there's a willingness to say, actually just do the full. That's going to be the better option for us, even though we really need your double full for the team score. Just do the full if that's what you're hitting, rather than just trying to throw it out there. But we will see. But it's making me a little nervous.
Yeah. Yeah. It made me very nervous watching it. I was like, but speaking of China, in case you missed it, last week, we had an interview with Cleo Washington, Sarah Korngold, and Owen Field, all coaches of a world champion, and different world champions, not all the same one. And anyway, they had lots of stories.
What if all three of them coached an athlete together?
Oh, it's the dream. So I asked about sabotage and cheating because, I always want to know because everyone's like, oh, China stole all the secrets of Nastia's bars and that's why they tied at the Olympics and all that. I'm like, you guys, does that really happen? So you guys, Sarah Korngold had a story, who coaches Shiley Jones, had a story about Qiyuan's coach. And here is what she said. Like some kind of attempted sabotage of the
sabotage. I am so upset. I threw a whole tantrum on the podium.
What happened?
We were in bar finals. It was bar finals, and they warm up like the first half and then the second half. And I was in the first half, and the Chinese coach comes up with his fire hydrant, and he just like water power blasts the bars. They are stripped. It is I'm not exaggerating. Go find the video. It's raining. Okay, it's raining, and
It was like not a spray bottle. It was literally like one of those like garden pump it up and
this was like a stripped, like this was a brand new out of the box stripped factory bar. His athlete was in the second half. He wasn't even in that half, and I was like, Laurent, and the Chinese guy stood there and he went. And I picked up the spotting block. I don't know my mind, but he did this. Like,
he gave you a look with
he did. He knew, like, and he was smirked at me, and I picked up the spotting block and threw it on the thing, and I got so mad. And so then Laurent and David Kikuchi, like Ellie Black's coach, are like, we're like mopping up the floor. It's raining. They're like having to rechalk all the bars because you only have so much time. And then so we were all frazzled, and I said to him, I said, "You're a bad man." And I got so mad. I did.
Oh.
That interview was an absolute joy. And if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it now, or you can watch it if you want to. And I just want to know from you, Spencer, what should Sarah do for the rematch? What are the defensive tactics when this happens?
Yeah, I mean,
where are we going, Paris?
I would say all above board, so turnabout is fair play, right?
Right.
You can prep the bars, you can do what you want. So what we got this week was the draw we had the team draw for the Olympics, but we got who are the mixed groups, apparatus final order, and all of that. So I was looking at the apparatus final order on bars. Second warm-up group in a bars final goes number 2 qualifier, number 1 qualifier, number 8 qualifier, number 3 qualifier. That's how that's the second warm-up group, how the bars final is going to end. I was like, okay. Kalian and Moore qualifies number 1. Qiyuan qualifies number 2. Charlize qualifies number 3. Realistic event duality for qualification. So Charlize would be in that second group, ending it. Chu would lead off that second group. When the second group warm-up starts, Sarah goes up and pours like an entire gym worth of chalk on the bars and then walks off. Like, do the same thing, right?
Yeah. You're in the same warm-up group, which is part of the bars. I mean, I love that. There's more to the story if you guys listen to the episode. But I love this idea. Also, I think that, you know how China always other teams do this too, but China was the first ones we saw do it. So I'm giving them all the credit. They bring like an umbrella and they hold it or like hook it to the bar so the chalk doesn't get on the mat. Because then there's this whole FIG rule about not having chalk on the mat because it's not a sport.
Right. It had everything. You don't have to pretend that chalk doesn't exist.
This is like the swimming Olympic trials just happening. Can you imagine if they were like, oh my God, wipe the water off of the deck? There's so much water at these swimming trials.
I have a lot to say about that. Maybe we should save it for behind the scenes this week, but yes. I have been watching the swimming trials. I have many comments about various things we've been seeing during the swimming trials.
Okay, me too, because I have a lot of comments about outfits and fashion. Okay. I
have a lot of comments about commercials and venues. So we'll see.
Yes.
See what
okay.
happens.
Good. In chalk, but you can't have chalk under the bars. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so I think that like China brings their capture the chalk umbrellas, she and get like Laurent, whoever else is like her allies in the final, all bring umbrellas and basically open the umbrellas and hold them in defense around the high bar so that he can't do this again until they're done prepping the bars and then put them down. I mean, I know you're not supposed to open an umbrella inside, so maybe bring parasols or something, because those are technically different. But I'm just saying, defense umbrellas for Paris. Huh?
Okay.
This would make a great GIF or a meme. Either way, we're here for it. Okay. Also, I want to mention, if you did not listen to Behind the Scenes this week, Owen and Sarah joined us for Behind the Scenes because Cleo was actually coaching, so like doing her actual job, making world champions.
Weird.
So she couldn't be there, but they joined us to answer your follow-up questions. But before, I want to play you a little clip of them answering some of the questions on Behind the Scenes. But before we get to that, a little gym nerd update for you. So we have live podcasts coming up from Olympic trials. I will be there in person. Of course, we have our live show. The Olympic Games, I will be there in Paris. So Gymcastic is still the first and only gymnastics podcast ever credentialed to an Olympic Games. And I will be watching every podium training. I can tell you all the things you don't see on TV. I can tell you what's not on the broadcast, what people didn't talk about, everything that's going on around. I can tell you what the arena smells like. That is the kind of intense extra bonus you get from being a Gymcastic listener. So that's coming up. And then we have a couple of FAQ articles to help you catch up, and you can share with your friends. They can, when they ask you questions, you can be like, here, Gymcastic has an article. We have an amazing intern working with us. He's doing a practicum because it's fancy with us, Daniel, who is beloved. He has his 15333 website. You know, that website has all the
15366.
Oh, sorry.
15366. You're directing people to the whole wrong place.
You know, I should. This is the problem with naming your website with numbers. Obviously, I messed up. Daniel, I'm so sorry. But his coverage is great, and he has all the pronunciation guides. Like, I've had his website like bookmarked for years and years. So he has some great guides coming up. He also has been doing the dossiers. So we're so glad to have him, and his explanations are excellent. He's so good. He's going to become a judge. So it's another, you know, you can tell like, oh, you'll pass the test. I can tell. So also live show update, in person sold out, but you can get on the wait list. So Eventbrite has a wait list. So you go like you're going to buy a ticket. And there have been some people who have had to, for various reasons, get a refund on their tickets. So some of the people have already gotten in from the wait list, but it is sold out. But virtual tickets are still available. So you can still watch and participate as a virtual ticket holder. The meet is scheduled to end promptly at 10 p.m. So we're going to try to start the live show right at 10:30 after I get done talking to the athletes, asking them the questions you guys want to hear, because I will be there in person and I can do that. And
this is in the Central Time Zone? So 10:30 p.m. Central United States time?
Yes, local to the Olympic trials time, Minnesota time. Oh my God, do you think the Fireflies are out there now? Oh, I'm so excited. Anyway, you guys, and you can get, so if you want to go over like right after, like at 10 when it ends, you can go get your cocktails, meet your fellow gym nerds. There's some prizes and giveaways. Like we have little, giveaways and stuff like that before the show starts. Also, our fantasy game for Olympic trials is coming up soon, should be ready this week. So you can make your teams for trials, and then you can be like, I was right when you get the right Olympic team. I mean, that's what I would do. Also, we have merch. So for your watch parties, for the Olympics, for trials, you should order now. If you need a banner, we have hats now. So you can get a Simone freaking Biles hat. They look so good, you guys. Also, if you need to find your people, Spencer, you can find them in the Gymcastic forum. I don't know if you know about this. I know your people are always trying to come to you. Oh my God. Owen got all the thirst trap. It was Thirst Trap Owen on behind the scenes since he was on. Yes, of course. Just like, so now he understands what your life is like, Spencer. So if you need to find, so if you need tickets to something, I mean, there's people who are selling their Olympic trials tickets for the Olympics in Paris. There's some people that are selling tickets in there. If you want to find a meetup, if you want to find your fellow gym nerd to go to the neighborhood with in Minnesota or Paris, check out the forum at gymcastic.com. So now I want to play you a little moment from our behind the scenes where Sarah, and so behind the scenes we do every Friday at noon Pacific, and we talk about things, and sometimes our interviewees join us to answer questions, follow-up questions you had. So this follow-up question after the interview, a lot of people asked, why would someone do a skill that you're not going to get credit for? Like, this is something we talk about all the time on the podcast. So I asked Owen and Sarah about this. And I want to remind you before we play this that Sarah joined us. It's the week before Olympic trials, and Sarah still came on the podcast to answer your questions. She was in the gym, and they were changing the lights. So there's the sound of a forklift going on behind her. But like when you can get a coach of this caliber, you take their audio wherever they are, however you can get it. So it's not perfect, but we're so grateful to Sarah for joining us. So here's what she said. But a lot of people wanted to know, why would someone do a skill that they know they're not going to get credit for?
I can speak for us personally. Last year we were at World Championships, and they go back and like base score every section of the meet, I guess. And Chelsea came back to me and they said they're not going to give her credit for her hop full. Her switch half is going to get devalued, and her Yurchenko double full is going to get devalued to a 1.5. And I was like, okay, well, I can like right? I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And I was like, I can fix the switch half, like we can deal with that. And like the hop full is going to be what it's going to be for this weekend. I don't have an option, but like the double full, I can't really fix while we're here. So like, I don't understand. But if they're threatening to devalue my switch half, then we're going to try the switch full, like, right. And then if it gets devalued, at least I'm for sure getting my switch half. And like, she can get credit for the switch full. I know, I've seen it with my own eyes. I've talked to coaches about it where you're like, okay, we're just going to do this start value. You're going to do a 5-3. It's going to be clean. It's going to be awesome. You can get your 8-2 execution, run with it. And like teenage girls, young women, they're opinionated. They have thoughts. And like, I can't do a 5-3. That's embarrassing. I don't want to do, oh, that's not speaking for my opinion. I don't get this argument, but I've heard it from others. This is not shy, but like, they're opinionated and they're whatever. And like, if we're preaching autonomy and this and that, and it's your journey and all of that, then you do like, okay, I've advised you on all the things. This is the ramification of your choice, but ultimately this is your gymnastics. And you're not going to die on a full twisting turgite. You're not going to roll your ankle. You're not going to snap your Achilles. You want to lose 5/10 because you're stubborn? Like, so that's kind of it for me.
Yeah. That makes sense. Owen, do you have anything to add to that?
I agree completely. I think the one thing that's different for us is we're not like being paid by Leanne, right? So but she is a part of our team and is committed to being here for 4 years of education. So I think that might change things a little bit there, but her the authority that she takes over her own gymnastics, I think is kind of next level. And it's just she's a very mature gymnast and very knowledgeable of the code and what works for her and how she needs to prepare for things and do things. So she's very heavily involved in the process, and she's basically like leading the charge with how many days a week we practice, when she practices, what she's doing, all of that stuff. So we're just there for support and to help guide when needed and make her smile when she's not having a great day and all that stuff, you know?
Oh, Owen. He's so sweet. That was, so if you guys want to listen to that, that's our behind the scenes that we do every Friday. And this week we're going to have me and Spencer are going to have a lot of things to discuss. We were trying to stop ourselves before we started recording, talking about all the things we have to talk about. So I want to talk about the British team, which has been, we have the Olympic team, you know, they've been riddled with injuries. They lost the first Gadarova 2 years ago. Now the second Gadarova is out, their world champion is out. And then their Rock Ondine out now too. And it's interesting, the team that they've chosen, because there are veterans mixed with people that weren't born when other people were on the team. So Spencer, give us the team.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, the team that they selected in terms of like, this is just the team that you had. This is the least controversial British women's Olympic team I think there's ever been, because it was like, whoop, that was the Euros team, and those are the people you have right now. Those are the scores. So Alice Kinsella, who is, you know, was going to be on this team regardless of who was injured or what was happening. She's going to be relied upon once again, as she has been for like a decade now, to be like, you're going to hit you do the all around. You have competitive routines on every event. You're going to hit them. Here you go. Georgia-Mae Fenton is on this team, which is so exciting for her, because we've been, you know, excited about her bars since 2017 when she got the Derwael Fenton named after her at Worlds, and she's on an Olympic team. Ruby Evans, who is vault and floor for this team, making it. Abby Martin, who on the category of a year ago, if you asked me who would be on the various Olympic teams, would not have been on the radar whatsoever. But again, she has a floor routine, and they need a floor routine without Gadarova. And she has that floor routine, and she's like, I'm here, I'm ready. The timing has worked out perfectly, and I'm ready to go and compete the routines that you need. And then, of course, Becky Downie. The Becky Downie. Like, for all of like British gymnastics should be so lucky, because she has had every and more reason to say, I want nothing to do with this ever again, and I'm gonna stop and not be part of this. And now you look at this Olympic team where if they didn't have Becky Downie, what would this team even be doing? Like they have not deserved her sticking around. And the fact that she has, because she is, a very competitive person who also really wants to, win Olympic medals and things, is, essential for the British team.
Yep. And just to put her into context, for one thing, if you haven't watched her comeback story documentary that Deanna Hong did, watch it. It's on YouTube, Deanna Hong. I'll link it in the show notes. It's excellent. But just to put her into context. So Ruby Evans, the Welsh speaking, I love listening to Welsh. It's such a wild sound to the ear that I enjoy very much. The owner of an almanar, she was only 1 year old when Becky made her first Olympic team. 1 year old. Abby Martin wasn't born yet when Becky Downie made her first Olympic team, which is Beijing in 2008. And then she was the alternate in 2012 after her first Achilles tear. Then in 2016, she made the Rio team with her sister. Then she had, the death of her brother during the Olympic trials for Tokyo and was controversially not selected for that team. And now she's made her third Olympic team after 2 Achilles tears at age 32. Her first international assignment as a junior was 18 years ago. 18 years ago. That's how long British Gymnastics has depended on her. And it's just not even that she's making teams. She's still doing one of the hardest bar routines in the world that when she can hit this routine, and she has many versions, will make the final, period. And that's all while speaking up for culture change with Gymnasts for Change. Now there's Gymnasts for Change International. She has an MBE, which is, for everybody that's not versed in the British Empire, like I am, it's the Order of the British Empire. It's an honor. It's like the Presidential Medal of Honor. And that was for her effect on the community. They didn't spell it out. But she has done so much, has so much perspective, is such an asset. Like, to be on a team with her, I just feel like, I hope that like Ruby and Abby are just soaking everything she does and says in, because she is so wise. And also she's had lots of injuries that have taken her out for a long time, and she's healthy and can do this at her age. It's incredible, and I just can't say enough things about Becky Downie. And also watch her bars, because she has, she can do all around if she needs to. She's a badass. Her beam's really good too.
Yeah, doing that
by the way.
They need her beam. This team needs her beam. Like, very reliant on Becky Downie's beam. I will also say the most fun backstage we've ever had at a live show that I have been at was when Becky Downie was there. That's all I'll say about that. But that was a very, very entertaining backstage.
Canadian Olympic team. So they know, like we have talked about in the past, like the US does not have an appeals process, because we're the Wild West. But other countries do, and Canada does have an appeals process. So basically they know the Olympic team. They have been told we won't find out for a couple days as the appeals processes. But Ellie Black won the all-around, 8-time national champ, almost caught up to Simone with 9. If she had competed last year, she probably would have.
Ellie Black is automatically on the team.
Yeah,
Aurélie Tran is automatically on the team.
Yeah, so we have 2. And Tran won last year's all-around when Ellie was out. So the floor was on podium at Canadian Olympic trials. It was like a real meet.
Brand new world.
I was like, what's happening? I just wanted them to have their own like mascot, like a leaf running around who then does the butt bounce. So Ellie Black does this butt bounce thing. She literally holds a V-sit and butt bounces all the way across the floor. So we've seen her and their new national team coordinator, Christian, also participate with the whole team trying to butt bounce across the floor, and it's hilarious. And what I need for them to finally complete the transformation of Canadian gymnastics, with the help of course, the Canadian Gymnasts for Change, who have all spoken up about the abuse they've suffered in that system, is for them to have a giant leaf doing the butt bounce contest with all of the kids in the audience. German national championships happened, and we have a new star emerges.
Yeah, Helen Kevric won the all-around title. So the thing with the Germans, did not qualify a team to the Olympics. Paulina Schaefer and Sarah Voss automatically qualified by name as individuals, and then Germany earned a third spot to be determined by the German program who they want to fill that spot. So we're all like, Helen Kevric won the all-around title versus Ellie Seitz is back and hit bars, and it's Ellie Seitz. So what's going to happen there? It's sort of, that's where we are with the remaining German spot.
Yeah, Ellie Seitz coming back from Achilles, incredible bar worker, veteran of many Olympics and World Championships, and inventor of the sights on bars, which is the most insane, like a skill we thought, we'll never see anyone do this, which is a free hip on the low bar to a full twist, grab the high bar.
Toe on the low bar.
Toe on to full twist, grab the high bar, which we rarely see. I think there's only one gymnast currently doing it now.
Others will train it, like Suni.
Annalie.
It's not valuable enough for... If it were more valuable in composition, I think we would see many more gymnasts doing it. But it's an E, even though also the half twist is an E.
Right.
Love the Women's Technical Committee. Everything makes so much sense. It's fun. I love it.
Yeah. It was an Achilles, by the way, which is perfect for a bar specialist. Like, yeah, if I'll put 2 weights on my feet, I'll do bars while I'm in this cast. There is a German documentary coming out, premiering, and you can buy tickets. I think all the German gymnasts have little links to how you can buy tickets, or Paulina Schaefer. She was a producer on this, so you can check out Paulina Pula from UCLA. Her socials have it as well. Yours truly may or may not be featured in that, but it goes into NCAA gymnastics and the German gymnastics and the whole like kind of changing face of gymnastics as well. And I'm really excited to see it. Melanie de Jesus dos Santos won all around with Cecile by her side, able to coach her. Oh my God, Cecile. Cecile went straight from US championships straight to France, like literally that night flew to France to be with Melanie to coach her at the French national championships. Which, I mean, dude, the schedule.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I also like that Cecile got to go to France and hopefully saw her family a little bit and stuff like that, which is really nice. But did you see Melanie's Dior Leo? She's sponsored by Dior, as in, like, it's like Chanel. It's one of those big fancy.
I mean, is Dior?
It's nothing like Chanel. First of all,
I mean, we've heard of Dior, right?
I mean, it's just like,
if you've heard of Chanel, I feel like you've heard of Dior, is what I'm saying.
I feel like we've had gymnasts sponsored by, brands like Tampax and Adidas and, underwear.
You would like
Jockey,
more gymnasts
Nadia.
to wear Tampax leotards?
You know who did? Vanessa Ferrari. Never forget the greatest pairing of tampons.
That's the fan challenge is design a Tampax sponsored leotard. What would it look like?
Yes. Or even better, a Diva Cup sponsorship is what we need next. Okay, but everybody knows. All right, it's a big fancy brand. Nothing like Chanel. I just watched that Apple TV show about the history of Dior versus Chanel. Very interesting. The Leo was gorgeous. Like, this is what you hope for when you're like, oh, an actual fashion design house is going to make a leotard. Beautiful. High fashion. It was everything we could have hoped for. Elevated, different. I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. So
you're saying it makes it look like everyone else is wearing a garbage truck to the Olympics?
Yes.
By comparison?
That's
got it.
Exactly. Yeah. Though I hope the whole Olympic team is wearing Dior because it looked so good. Some other Olympic news. that we have this week. So we talked briefly about the draws, but I think that we should wildly speculate about the impact these will have, which will not matter.
When the team part of the draw came out, we went out of our way to be like, actually, it doesn't matter. We had a whole study. So we can't go back and wildly
that proves it doesn't matter what subdivision you are in. But here is the part I want to talk about.
Yeah.
But also, okay, so basically, if you missed that, US starts on beam, the British start on vault, Italy starts on floor, France starts on bars, Brazil starts on vault. And none of the main teams are up against each other except, China, USA, and Italy are together.
There's one very big subdivision.
China, USA, and Italy are in the same subdivision.
Yeah, that could be the 3 team medalists. It's very much more open than that, but it could be. What we got was that Kalia Namor now is also in that group. So that's just like, you want to watch some bars?
China and Kalia Namor
is the ticket to have.
Yeah. I'm very excited to see her. And she's starting, what does she start on? She starts on bars too. That's her first event. And then Lindsey Brown for Haiti is starting on floor. Also, she has a GoFundMe to help her it's like help her fund her, going to the Olympics, but also like not being homeless when she comes back, which is important. So if you would like to help her out, she does have a GoFundMe. There isn't, I was like, will there be some drama between what team is with who? So there will always be drama. Like, one thing is New Zealand shows that they have their 2 spots as a country in mixed group 4, who are rotating with Canada, France, or mixed group 4 is rotating with Japan, and then the same subdivision as Japan and Netherlands. But
and they're in the same group as the Philippines individuals.
Yeah. Netherlands gymnast Isabella Brett won
New Zealand.
For New Zealand. Where did I say she was from?
You said Netherlands gymnast Isabella Brett.
Jesus Christ. You guys. I'm thrown off by my joy of doing the show with you, Spencer. That's really what's happening. Sure. Or maybe my one brain cell that remembers how to say things specifically is like, I don't have to worry, Spencer's here. So New Zealand gymnast Isabella Brett won the qualifying spot from her continental championship to go to the Olympics. The thing is, her national federation has to say, yes, you may take this spot. So it's been several weeks since she won the spot, the ability to go, but New Zealand has not, as far as we know, to this date, has not given her the spot, has not awarded her the ability to go and take her spot in the Olympics. So we already know Georgia Rose Brown moved from Australia to her New Zealand citizenship. She already has a spot. So they could have and are allowed in this mixed group. There are 2 spots for New Zealand, but as of right now, we don't know if New Zealand is actually going to send their second gymnast. And with the history of New Zealand, it's much like the history of Australia gymnastics wise. And sometimes they like a gymnastics jail. So other subdivision mixed group drama that you see unfolding, anything?
No, I think,
No, either.
Everyone's we'll find out who puts too much water on the bars, but not that I know of.
I think everyone's going to be really excited to watch mixed group 4, which is the Philippines gymnast rotating, which is Malabuyo, Levi, Aaliyah Finnegan, all rotating in the same subdivision as Japan and Netherlands. So that's going to be a pretty subdivision. Maybe beautiful.
The other thing is the very last routines of the very last subdivision of qualification would be Nina on bars. And bars is going to be so tough to make the final and so interesting. So I think that's going to be watch with bated breath to the end. Is Nina, does she have it yet on bars? Is she back? Is she going to make the final? So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. Can you imagine if she gets back to where she was?
She was close at Europe.
Yeah.
You were like, it's not there yet, but it's not that far away.
No. I feel like she could do it because,
Yeah, very much she can make the final and get back to Nina.
Yeah. I'm also interested to see what Emma Malabuyo does because she is putting up videos of herself doing an Arabian on beam, bringing back floor passes. She's just oh, it's the Olympics. I'll bring back all my elite skills now. I made it.
Go
I
for
don't
it.
play it safe. I love this.
Yeah.
God, I want this. Also, in case
It's the ideal of a gymnast who's in the position of getting to play Olympics, of just like, I made the Olympics. That was the big goal, and now I get to go and like let's play around with some skills. Let's have some fun.
Also, in case you missed it, Chuso has said that she wants to see if she can make LA 2028 Olympics. Already training, of course, in her boot. So obviously, it's Chuso. Of course, she's going to make it.
Note to the quota process: add legacy spots. It's just an easy fan win.
Yes, exactly.
Club Gym Nerd, you get discounts and first dibs on live show tickets, an extra whole podcast every week, athlete dossiers for major competitions, code guides, options to commission your own segments. It also makes a great gift. Check it out at gymcastic.com at the Join the Club tab.
Some Gymternet news. We have the NBC broadcast teams. They are official. I mean, we've known basically who's going to be the broadcast teams, but so Terry Gannon, he's been the guy, the like normal who's been there doing like numbers. And then Tim Daggett and
just been
Sam.
like the best compliment you can give, which is not Al Trawick.
Basically, he has said nothing offensive that I can remember. Tim Daggett will be there. I think is the men's specialist. And Sam Peshek is getting the main spot. So Sam Peshek, and she has been working, like this was her goal. She always wanted to be a commentator. She finally did it, has worked her way up through the college ranks, and has been doing it for the last couple of years in the US. So then John Roethlisberger, I think his spot is going to be move up too, but he's also been there. And then Zora Stevenson is going to be the person. The Andrea Joyce will now be Zora Stevenson. She's a basketball person, was a basketball player. And then the live.
Speaking of Andrea Joyce, she's on diving now. She was doing some weird Andrea Joyce thing at the diving trials, and I was like, so nothing's changed. Don't worry, Andrea's still Andrea.
Also, Andrea has a book coming out. It's a like children's book, like a photo book.
I wanted to tell all, Andrea.
I know.
Oh.
Well, we might get
those
on.
walk talk.
Yes, exactly. I'm working on it. So, also for the live. So, what you guys will all be watching when you're waking up in the middle of the night to watch, Lori Hernandez will be the analyst, and then for women, and then Justin Spring, which. If you wanted entertainment, if you want anything to help men's gymnastics along, Justin Spring is the best way to go. Very pleased about this. Do you have any expectations from this group? Is there anything you're gonna like wildly changed? Any hopes, fears, dreams?
No, we've seen them. We've seen. We haven't seen Justin, but like, otherwise, right?
No. Well, he did. Did he do this last? No, Tim did championships, right? He was just doing his.
But we've seen what they're doing. There seems to be, Roethlisberger, they'll have him holding the artistry checklist, so that's a win. Being like, this is what you have to do. And then the US gymnast will be like, I don't need to. Save it.
I am looking forward to just Sam Peshek's behind the scenes on her socials. That's what I'm most looking forward to. But Sam does a lot of prep, and the athletes have a good relationship with her, so I'm excited. I mean, she'll have that on the broadcast, but the non-broadcast.
Yeah, what I like is that both Sam and Roethlisberger seem to have a good sense of humor about the whole position and how, like, obviously the fans are going to be like, wasn't it so annoying when they said this? And wasn't it so annoying when they said this? And that's obviously what's going to happen. And I think they have, like, a chiller perspective about that and are in a good position to handle that.
Yes, I agree. But if you like what they're doing, don't hesitate to reach out and tell them, because it's really nice to hear nice things when everyone assumes you never see anything. I feel like Justin Spring has the possibility of like there's this sports, like one of the reasons that I started Gymcastic and founded it, and then found the genius that is Spencer Barnes. Is like me and Coop used to listen to this radio show. That's fact checker Coop. I'm married to him. We used to carpool to work. And so we used to listen to the sports radio show on like AM, and like I could give two shits about I had no idea who they're talking about, no idea what their guests were. but it was really entertaining and funny, and like I enjoyed it for all the like stories and behind the scenes stuff, and it wasn't like too like inside baseball, you know. And I was like, God, it would be cool if there was something like this for gymnastics. So I invented it. So I think Justin Spring could be that for men's gymnastics because he is so entertaining on his own, just as a human, that I think he could do this. Iowa's new head coach is Jen Llewellyn. So national champion at Linden.
Oregon State gymnast.
Oregon State, yeah.
Lindenwood was going to be like an assistant, volunteer assistant, and then was like, oh, you're the head coach now. Have fun. You're the head coach. And then it went really well. And then she got hired at Washington, and it's continued to go well. And now she is at Iowa.
Yep. So I'm interested to see who the new UW coach will be. Because I don't know if you guys know this, Seattle is beautiful and amazing. And oh my God, going to school in Seattle, as I went to school in Seattle, is incredible. I didn't go to UW. I just did my internship there, but it's such a beautiful place. There we have a retirement at the hipster Sips and Flips DC school, which is Margie Forster Cunningham, longtime George Washington University coach.
It's Foster. Don't Tom Forster her.
Oh my God, Foster!
You got in Tom Forster brain.
I did. It's like I've practiced so long because I said his name wrong that now I can't see the other names.
You can't do it.
Yeah, Foster Cunningham has retired after 39 years. So there's another. If you like DC, then there's another job opening. So keep an eye on Greg Marsden's coaches jumping around spreadsheet on the Twitters. Also, the most important thing that happened on the socials this week, Hambuechen, Olympic champion on high bar. No, it's Hambuechen, right? The famous. What did I call it?
That was you said Hambuechen a little bit, which was a nice one. I thought that was intentional.
Hambuechen is the one that had the name off, and Hambuechen were in the high bar final, which was like the last event that was at Athens Games, and the crowd wouldn't stop clapping, and they were angry because of name-off score, and Hambuechen was up, and like name-off had to come up and be like, "You guys, thank you so much, but please stop rioting in the stands." It wasn't a riot; it was gymnastics fans would never, but we like to threaten though by clapping while sitting down. Then Hambuechen went, and he's amazing, and he's like a prodigy since he was a little kid. Also, one of the OGs of glasses and gymnastics, so he is still like incredible gymnastics shape. So he did and if you're a visual listener, you can watch this or go to his socials. He is outdoors. Okay. They have set up a high bar with panel mats under, and then some like 24-inch mats on either side, but there's concrete on either side of him. And he has someone standing there for a dismount, but he's outside. They have all these like water jugs to hold the bars down, but they are a little wiggly. He does a Kovacs. He does a Kovacs outdoors on the street. And it's perfect. It's like he never stopped doing gymnastics. Adult gymnastics, you guys. This is the time. There are so many camps. If you're
and you don't have to do it on the street if you don't want to, and probably shouldn't.
You never have to land on a hard mat like Hambuechen chose to. I'm still counting a hard mat. It was a big ass crash pad, but still, if you guys are inspired by this, like you can do gymnastics at any age. There are so many adult gymnastics camps. There are so many. Go to adult gymnastics website, or there's a face group like a fine wine, adult gymnastics. It's exploding like I've always hoped it would. I did it for years and years and years, and it's so fun. And basically, when you're adult, you do exactly what you want. So if you want to go in and only do tumble track the whole time and then scoff at the beam and kick it and then leave the gym, you can, because you're a grown-up. So wonderful, Spencer. We have a special guest here this week who's going to talk about artistry, an actual ballet critic from the Sorbonne. Going into national championships, Olympic trials, and the Olympics, I wanted to have a way to talk more about artistry and gymnastics without being limited by the artistry deductions. And for that, I have invited Dr. Laura Cappelle to the show. Thank you for being here again. Laura is a dance and theater journalist and critic for the New York Times, Financial Times, among other publications. She's an associate professor at the Sorbonne Nouvelle and has a PhD in art sociology and edited an introduction to Western dance history in French and has a new book out. So first, talking about a vocabulary for artistry, the Code of Points Artistry Checklist is not actually about art. It is an objective checklist to judge and deduct or award. It's trying to incentivize art as art was performed back in, I would say, the Soviet days and the 80s in gymnastics and now has been lost and they're trying to bring it back. So it is something that you can use objectively to take deductions or award the 8/10ths. But we want to give like a vocabulary for gymnastics fans to talk about this, like a vocab 101 for non-dance people. So how can we talk about this in a more informed way, would you say, Laura?
Well, first of all, I want to say the checklist is not that bad. Like even to a dance person's eye, like some of the way that it's phrased is a little funny to me, like insufficient involvement of the body parts feels a little like, I don't know, you have someone on the string and you're trying to pull the leg and the arm and the, it's a little funny. But I feel like sometimes, yes, as you were saying, we're missing a vocabulary that is perhaps a little more about the quality of movements. You do get that a little bit with expressive engagement and what they call fluency, I believe, somewhere. Yes, lack of fluency is a deduction in the codes. So that is a good starting point, but you could use a lot more to sort of describe that. It's like whether it's about the connectedness of the movements, like the momentum that you bring to it, the construction of the choreography as well. Those are all elements that I think it would be really interesting to sort of bring a little bit more into choreography analysis in gymnastics.
Do you think there's anything that like influences the way gymnastics is choreographed that we don't consider as just like fans watching in an arena or fans watching on TV?
What do you mean by what influences?
For college, I know the college choreography is made way more for the audience. And sometimes I've seen elite gymnasts choreograph specifically to the judges.
Interesting. Because I think one of my questions with gymnastics choreography in general is whether it's meant for the audience or for TV. Like, I think that's a question, especially for big elite competitions where you do have hopefully an arena that's big enough to have many audience members, depending on the country that it's in. But you're also trying to sort of bring it to a larger audience, and usually you're going to be doing that through filming. So in that sense, like there's also something to be said for choreographing a piece or a routine for the eye of the camera rather than also for the arena as a whole. It's a little hard to evaluate from the outside. I feel like in general, like there's a lack of construction in the choreography from start to finish. Like it can feel a little bit with a lot of routines that you just have steps that have been sort of strung together, as opposed to having a starting point, an arc, and then an ending point. So you feel like you've been on a journey with the gymnast. I think that's missing a little bit in a lot of routines, if that makes sense.
Yep, that does make sense. So how can we recognize and know when choreography has been successful as a whole?
So I think it's very dependent on the gymnast and the specific goals of the routine. Just to give you an idea, like what I do as a dance critic is like I try to go into a performance and not just bring my personal criteria to it, but I try and see like what the choreographer tried to achieve with the routine based on the skills of the dancers a lot of the time, and whether or not like those goals have been achieved in the performance. And I feel like that it's similar with gymnastics. Like you're working with very different people, with very different performers. So to me, like whether it's a successful routine will depend on like, are the gymnast qualities highlighted in the routine in a way that makes it feel like you've really understood something about them, or you understand their quality of movements. I think that's the best way to approach it, because in a way, like any style goes. Like it's not, you don't need to one specific style. It doesn't need to be balletic for choreography to be successful, which was the approach for a long time in gymnastics, like to an extent. That's not, I mean, and NCAA has shown that that's not the way to go. Like you can do it many different ways, but you have to sort of assess what the goals were, whether they've been successfully reached, and whether that's been structured into a piece of choreography that will hold the attention of an audience for 1 minute and 30 seconds, which is not very long.
No, it's very, very short. And I like how you mentioned, like, it doesn't matter the style of gymnastics, it's whether you feel like you've experienced something, kind of, because I feel like that a lot of the times when I watch Oklahoma, and a lot of people have like very mixed feelings about Oklahoma and their choreography. Like we were talking beforehand about Webb and Jordan Bowers. And the thing is, like, even if you don't like the style of KJ's choreography, you feel like you're in a performance and the performance is consistent the whole time. And you are either feeling like angry vibes or you're something, like it is a whole complete performance. It doesn't feel disconnected.
Yeah, her routines are really well constructed, like, because choreography is kind of constructed over time and space. So you need that sense of whether it's going somewhere, like over the routine for it to be successful. And KJ Kinder does that really well. And also she has a way, I think, of working with gymnasts that brings out performers, in the sense that it really depends, again, on the person that you're working with. Is the person that you're working with able to act or not? Like, I think that's one of the starting points. Is that an option when you're working with that person, or do you have to rely on their sort of natural quality of expression? I think KJ Kinder sort of manages to bring out, like, for instance, with Anastasia Webb, the person that she was, I think, I interviewed her once and she was just the sweetest person, and the fierceness that she brought to her choreography, she was able to act. And as a choreographer, if you know that about your gymnast, then you're able to sort of maybe bring like a wider range of expression to a routine. Though I think as a choreographer, it can be just a quality. It's a quality if you can work with anyone and just say, okay, this person is not an actress, like she's not going to be performing something other than perhaps herself, like, or her natural way of being. So I need to tailor the choreography to that so that it serves her best.
Let's talk about a couple of routines. So let's start with Melanie, since we're talking about France, and because her 2023 piano routine is, and I stand by this, one of the greatest pieces of gymnastics art of all time. So why would you say that this piece of choreography is successful?
I think it was, well, first of all, Melanie has real qualities, like as a performer. You can see it in her opening sequence, just the way that she extends her arms. Like she does it from her back, like she moves her head at the same time. What we were saying about involvement of body parts, like she does it in a way that is connected. It doesn't feel random in a way. So she's a beautiful performer, but I think with that routine, it was a good match of who she is and the music, the choice of music. She has a sort of, to me, like a kind of melancholy quality as a gymnast. It doesn't mean that it's her personality. I mean, sometimes what you project to an audience is not who you are in real life. Like people who have like resting bitch face. Like, yeah. And in her case, I mean, to me, she's always struck me as that, like she has that slightly melancholy quality. And here it's a good match with the piano, with the sort of cascading notes that the choreography is playing with. Whereas in her current routine, I think the debate that initiated, it's not so much that she's not performing it well. Her current routine, not at all. Like, I mean, she's still Melanie. But the music is much more epic. The choreography is fairly similar at times, but there is kind of a disconnect between the choreography and what the music is projecting to the audience. So it doesn't, you're not seeing a performance where every element sort of coheres into a whole, to me, compared to this one that we're watching.
Yep, I agree with that. It's interesting how you say the movement starts from her back. Like it starts from the center and like comes out. And it's something you can't always do that. There's definitely choreography that like the whole point is that it seems disconnected and it's awkward. But hers is just such a,
That can be the goal in choreography, that it feels disjointed, like that can be sort of, and if you're working with someone who doesn't have that natural connectedness, then maybe you will want to go in that direction. But a lot of choreography in general actually it sort of radiates from the center of the body. Like you feel sort of the energy radiating into the limbs, like outwards. And you see that in a lot of like the best performers, like Brooklyn Moores is another case where when she moves an arm, she involves like her shoulders, her back, like everything is involved in the movement, which gives it much greater impact. Whereas if you just extend an arm, like if you just do it without moving any other part of your body, it just doesn't have the same effect.
Yeah. I think about Brooklyn Moores and I wonder why it is, and you as a sociologist, a doctor of sociology, if you will, literally, is there a reason we love this? Is because we don't see it perform so well? The Pain of a Nation is such a thing in gymnastics that we identify and love. And I don't know, is there a reason we like that so much more?
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that question. Okay. I think it's empathy, like to an extent, because you connect with the emotion that she's trying to project. Like it feels very genuine, I think, in that routine. I have a sense that it's quite specific, like in how, I mean, I don't know, I haven't asked her, maybe you have, she has something very specific in mind when she's performing it. As I think with a lot of like emotional expression, sometimes in gymnastics with people who have perhaps less ability as performers, it just feels a little like vague, like a little generic. Yes. And here she's putting everything into it. It's like that moment when she's on the floor and she's just sort of like pushing forward to come back up. Like you feel like she is almost resisting against something. Like every movement is done to the fullest. Yeah. Which helps you relate to it. In a way, I think.
I like a true doctor. You're like, well, I don't have the data to support my statement, so I'm not going to commit to anything before I say why gymnastics fans love Pain of a Nation so much. That was an excellent doctor response. What is an example of, we talked a lot about how like when someone has a good quality of movement and when they have good training and when they're like feeling the movement, why, and the music works. What's an example of something where someone is doing something that works really well, but they're not necessarily like a natural performer like Melanie and Brooklyn?
Yeah, I think Morgane Ossisek from France is a good example of that. Like I had a conversation with her choreographer, who is the French national team's choreographer, Grégory Milon, who also did the choreography for Simone Biles this year, who said that for Morgane, it was a matter of finding a style of movement that was a good fit for her way of moving, which is a little stiff. Like it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that it's going to be very hard to train that out of someone unless you have like proper continued dance training. So instead of like putting a lot of energy into that, I think they try to find something that fit her way of moving, which may not be the most sort of expressive performance-wise. So what they went and did, they selected a piece of music that is by Tom Willems, who is a composer associated with the ballet choreographer William Forsythe. Tom Willems did a lot of the music for his choreography. And Grégory Milon, the choreographer for this routine, was a ballet dancer. So he knows the repertoire really well. He went and took music from a piece called In the Middle, Somewhat Elevated, a ballet from 1987 that is set to sort of like this crashing electronic music that's a lot of fun to watch on stage. And he used that for Morgane Ossisek's routine. And he told me that actually a lot of the coaches and gymnasts, when they heard the music for the first time, they were like, what? What is this? This is not music. But it's a good match for her because it allows her to use sort of like straighter lines, like a slightly more angular style of movements. It works with that electronic music in a way that it would never work to a classical piece of music. So you kind of like find a way to make it. I don't think it's the most extraordinary, perhaps, like floor performance of all time, but it works for her. And also, apparently, it also served to really minimize deductions within the code of points. Like they said that I think her deductions went down by a few tenths when she started performing that routine versus the one that she had previously. So in a way, you could say that that's kind of a success drawing on contemporary ballet history.
I want to talk about another routine that I think is like totally avant-garde for gymnastics, but not avant-garde at all in the dance world. Anna Wever's routine on beam, it is, I think it used to be called lyrical. I think it is so different for gymnastics. I've never ever, even in the weird experimental late 70s, which is the most experimental time I would say we saw in gymnastics, where there were floor routines that were just like pretending you were covered in ants. It's so unusual. And what I don't know what terms to use to describe this routine.
It's an intriguing routine to me, because I don't love it. Like, I feel like it's there's almost a resistance, like, in her style, like to what she's doing. It's like, it's also here a little bit more angular maybe than what she used to do, and her demeanor is so serene and pretty sort of calm, like on beam, which is very impressive. So that gives her a very fluid style. And here she is working more with flexed feet, and sort of like, see where she is working more in plie, so like with bent legs, and working with choreography that is slightly less sort of maybe flowy than she had previously. I'm not entirely sure again here that it's a great fit between gymnast and choreography. I think it's a great experiment. Like, it's quite fun, but she could see here when she goes down on the beam, and then here moves back with flex feet and almost like warms her way like to a standing position. Mm-hmm. It's quite fun. I mean, honestly, like I feel like maybe in NCAA some beam routines have gone further in the direction of bringing like a unified theme throughout the routine. I think here it contrasts a little. Those moments contrast a little with her spins and her acrobatics, which have a different quality. Like, it feels less unified perhaps than it does in the best floor routines or in the best beam routines to me.
Yeah, it is like she made beam finals with this routine, and it was so interesting to me because it is such a departure. And it's also like, I think there's things in there that are very like standard, like when you take your first, I don't know, modern dance class, and like you move forward and then you follow it. Like, these are things that you just learn in basic dance, but we never see that in a beam routine ever.
But it's so funny that it's being called avant-garde, because it's really not. Like, I mean, not much being done in gymnastics is actually avant-garde from an artistic perspective, like from an art history perspective. So it's always quite funny to see from a dance point of view.
Yes, we're so excited when someone does something that people have been doing for 50, 60, 70 years in dance. We're like, yes, oh my God. Like, we should be calling Simone's vault and Nemours bars avant-garde. That's what we should be calling avant-garde. I'm gonna bring that into fashion.
Though I think in terms of beam routines, I feel like in terms of really weaving the choreography into the acrobatics, I feel like Manila Esposito, for instance, does it a little bit better in terms of current European beam routines. Like, the way that she kind of works into her wolf turn, for instance, like she will go down, but there's a flourish of her hands over her head before she gets into the preparation position. Mm-hmm. And it sort of leads directly into the turn. Yes. So to the eye, it's coherent, like it's pleasing. It feels like it's part of a whole, instead of like, oh, I'm doing a move that is choreography, and then like here comes like the harder part, if that makes sense.
Esposito is one from Italy, and she just won Italian nationals. I am obsessed with her, and I think one of the things I love is there is the weaving. I always call it like connecting, because I think about connecting for your bonus, and It's supposed to be like a marriage of acrobatics and dance, or supposed to be what gymnastics is. And she does it perfectly, and I think part of it is her quality of movement, and part of it is her flexibility, and she uses that. But you don't see her skills coming; it just arrives, and that.
It's been really well tailored to her strengths, like the choreography that she uses on beam and on floor, because some of it is similar, like going into the wolf turn, she does it both on beam and on floor. And she has that sort of sinewy quality to her that's really used in the choreography. Like, I love also the moments after the wolf turn on beam. She swings one leg closer to the other, and then she swings back the other side, which gives it like a sense of like going back and forth. Like it's kind of like it creates like a push and pull for the eye. That's really interesting and also leads directly into the rest. Or else there's also a moment where she's about to sort of flip back. She's still on the beam and then she flips back to a standing position. But before doing that, like she flexes her foot. Then she goes back into this gorgeous, like she goes back with beautiful pointed toes. You think you're highlighting like the quality because she has like her pointed feet are wonderful. She has what we call in ballet coup de pied, which is like that sort of like that curve like over the foot that gives a really pleasing line. Like you can't really like, I mean, you can sort of force it sometimes, but it's also part of like your natural like body type. Like you can't really teach that. She just has that. So if you like play with flexing and pointing the foot, then you're highlighting that because when it points again, you see, oh, wow, like the line is recreated in front of you and it's really beautiful.
I want to talk about Jessica Gadarova, who I think her choreography is genius, and she is won the world championship with it. And I think it's so smart the way she did her choreography. And I feel like it's part of using what you're talking about is she is not the same kind of mover like an Esposito or Melanie, but the choreography is perfect to her movement style. And it totally worked for maximizing the code and the artistry checklist. What do you think about her routine? What do you see?
I think it's a really good example in building momentum in a routine because it actually starts out pretty slowly. Like she goes into this deep plie, like moves very slowly, but she has intensity in her movement. So you can do that with her. And then throughout the routine, it becomes sort of faster and faster and it builds up to something. Like you get that sense of like what I was talking about earlier, like a dramatic arc to the routine, which doesn't have to be a story necessarily. Like you can just build it through variation in the quality of movement throughout like a piece of choreography. What you really don't want quite often in choreography is to have the same intensity throughout because it's boring to the eye. Like essentially, like it just feels like you're giving the same value to every step. Whereas if you're giving like different weights to the steps that you're using, then you are creating sort of like a narrative, like a visual narrative for the audience. It's more sort of attractive to the eye to see, oh, like she's slowing down here, but that's to give sort of more weight, sort of more impact to the next step, which Brooklyn Moores does really well as well. And I think Jessica Gadarova is a great example of that because she could do this whole routine like, I mean, probably if she has the endurance at that point, she's amazing. Like she could do it at a really, really fast pace, like throughout. But you don't necessarily want that. Like that's not, at least in terms of artistry, you could do that if you just want to show off, like, again, endurance, a quickness, like to it. But it's a lot more interesting if you hold back sometimes a little bit. So then when the movement actually sort of explodes in the air or on the floor, then you're sort of drawn to it immediately because your eye has been prepared to wait for it and then sort of enjoy the release.
I love that you just said like the same intensity throughout is a problem. I heard a dance people talking about this because I'm trying to expand my vocabulary and how to talk about this. And someone was talking about Jojo Siwa, who was on a dance show here, Dance Moms, which is just child abuse on screen documented. And And she was saying how her style, Jojo Siwa's style, is like highlighting every single sentence on a page instead of highlighting one. And I was like, this is the thing. Like you said, it can work. Like somebody like Risa Sponda or somebody like Jade Carey, I think that would work for. Instead of trying to change her style, just give her like dynamic superhero routine. That works for someone like that.
Especially if it's just a minute and 30 seconds. I mean, you can do it. Like, it's not an issue. And actually, it's done quite a bit, especially in commercial choreography. Like, there's that sense that you have to go full out all the time.
Yep.
Like, but that's, as a dance critic, that's not really what you look for. Like, because it is less interesting. Like, there's less of a chance to show sort of peaks and valley. And, you know, the ebb and flow is what's going to draw you more into the expressive parts of it. So, like, and make you feel like you're seeing like a human being. performing something and perhaps telling you a story, or at least telling you about themselves, as opposed to watching like a dance machine doing incredible things. That can be really cool as well. Like, I mean, honestly, like some of those routines can work really well. But if you don't have that type of performer, especially like if you have someone who is a little more restrained, then you're probably going to get better results out of like trying to modulate the energy over the routine, as opposed to going full out every time. Because if someone is not performing the steps that well, like just, like doing like a leg kick and another leg kick, another leg kick at the same intensity, with the same level of intensity, is not going to be very interesting for the audience.
Yes. Like this is how I feel when I went to see the Rockettes as a kid in New York City, and it was a big deal. And I was like, they're just kicking. Like it's just them kicking. And I was like, it's very impressive. The thing about them is it's their synchronicity. They all do it at the same time, and that's a whole skill, and that's very impressive. But I was like, it's just they're doing the same kick the whole time. Like I thought there was more to this show, but no, it's leotards kicking. No offense to the dancers, I could not do it, but I'm just saying. I feel like
that way. I think group choreography is also like, at least you give that sense of like pattern to the eye and the geometry of all those bodies doing the same thing. Whereas if it's just one person, it's harder because you're only working with one body and the geometry of that body and its possibilities. So the more you do, I think, to sort of give nuance to their expression, like to their routine, the more interesting it gets. But that's a dance critic's perspective.
Let's take some examples from the actual checklist and talk about them. So we have poor body posture, musicality, poor expressive engagement, and then insufficient involvement of body parts. Are there any of those that you want to expand on or talk about?
I think musicality is a really key one, like in terms of artistry. We were talking about Melanie's relationship to the music earlier. Sometimes it's a matter of finding the right music for someone, but also like the bigger part of it is listening really closely to the music to understand when to sort of cue your performance to specific notes, or when to sort of wait enough to then hit the right part of the music, the right part of the score, for it to have maximum impact. I mean, ideally, you sort of want to model the choreography after the structure of the music, which if you have a medley of very different excerpts from pieces, it can be hard because it can be sort of like relentless rhythm. But yeah, musicality is really key, and it is really hard to show in a minute and 30 seconds. Again, like you just have very little time to show sort of like the nuance of that relationship, but it's always going to be part, I think, of the best floor routines.
Yeah. I think the one thing I like about how the checklist describes that is like if it's like background music. And my feeling about that is like if I mute it, I should be able to know what the tempo of the music is or know something, which even in ballet, which I feel like sometimes ballet has no connection to the music. It's just going, they're doing the very slow, you're in a music box and you're being turned around in a circle by a dude, that thing.
That's not true.
I feel like I'm like, where?
Excellent ballet is not that way. And actually, you're in the US, you have one of the most musical ballet choreographers in history, George Balanchine, who is kind of like a great man of American ballet, at least with 20th century history. And his musicality is so outstanding. Like you watch the two, you feel like one of his ways of putting it was saying, you have to see the music and hear the dance, which I think applies to a lot of musicality. Like you have to see the music and the performance and to hear the dance, like when you're watching the dance, to sort of hear the music through it. The best pieces of ballet choreography do that, and I think the best floor routines will do that as well. Like you really want that. I mean, you have strands of contemporary choreography that have really disconnected choreography and music that will use some, for instance, chants, like to mix the two. You'll create the steps on the one hand, and then you'll add the music to it later. I don't think in gymnastics that's an approach that's really going to work. Like if you're watching steps and you feel like they could be performed to any piece of music, it probably wasn't a very successful flow routine.
Yes. Okay, this is very good. I haven't seen a Balanchine ballet, so I need to go to one of these. See like the Joffrey or the New York or the, I do always see Alvin Ailey when they come to town because I'm obsessed with Alvin Ailey and I love everything they do. So yes.
They're wonderful examples of musicality as well. Alvin Ailey's Revelations, his most famous work, like, is incredibly musical, like in a lot of sections. Like you really see the two sort of meshing together so well.
It was my dream for Shilese to do some kind of Revelations floor routine this year because her long arms and height, I feel like would be so beautiful and would work so well with that kind of choreography and music.
It would be very cool if sometimes gymnastics choreographers really took inspiration a bit more from what is happening in the dance world, like maybe paying tribute to the style of some choreographers. But I know it is hard because you are in that world, like in the gymnastics world, and you don't necessarily have the opportunities to see everything that's happening. But sometimes it's a good way to get out of your own head and get out of the box that you're used to sort of maybe seek out a choreographer and just try and use their style almost, or like be inspired by their style to do something slightly different. There's so much variety in choreography today in the dance world. It's not necessarily reflected in what we're seeing in gymnastics.
From the audience perspective, I think like when we're talking about what we like and dislike or why we think that, I think sometimes we can't put into words when we see something that is not working compared to Melanie performing. It's hard for us to articulate that.
I think it often comes down to the coherence of the whole. Like you may have various parts that are like pleasing enough in themselves, but whether they're connected or not, like is kind of the whole point if you're talking about a dance performance. So you can look for that. Like, and in a way, it's a good way to also avoid like saying, oh, this gymnast is a bad dancer or that she's not performing well. That's not necessarily the issue at times. Like it's more that the choreography is not suited to the person who might not be the most expressive performer, but you can work with people like in a way that is going to highlight their personal way of being, whether even if that's being a very restrained and quiet person. Like quiet choreography is very beautiful and often underrated, I think, in choreography. Like sometimes you can do less but make it interesting. That requires a level of intensity in what you're doing still, like while being very quiet. And I think one of the things that I miss a lot of the time, like in gymnastics choreography, is specificity. Like you don't necessarily have to have a narrative, a specific story, but what exactly are you trying to say? Because just being sad or being vaguely happy is not specific enough often, like to sustain interest in choreography. Sometimes it's more interesting to have a story for yourself. Like it doesn't necessarily have to come across very clearly, but what is it like that triggered that emotion? Like, are you thinking of someone? Are you thinking of something? Are you trying to highlight a specific part of the body as well? That you could say, this entire routine is going to grow out of like my elbow. My elbow is going to be leading the way like throughout, and I'm going to be using it in various ways, but I'm going to be highlighting it every time instead of just doing like a vague leg kick. Like just find something that is specific, hang on to it, be very like precise and focused on that. And that focus comes across like to the audience. Like even if we don't quite know sort of like what triggered it, like the level of focus that you put into the details is always going to pay off, in my opinion.
Yep. I mean, there have been 2 routines that are just foot focused, like a foot fetish, look at my foot routines in 2 different countries I'm thinking of right now. I love that about them because it was like the gymnast was obsessed with their own foot and they followed it everywhere it went, and it made shapes and it drew shapes in the air and it changed position. And those were really interesting to watch. Both very different, but like you're talking about.
That's where you can't like, I mean, the checklist is nice, but like insufficient involvement of body parts like does not mean that you can't focus on for instance one body part, on like leading with your foot through everything, and like that is going to bring your whole body into it. Hopefully, like you want to involve the rest of the body, but you can sort of give different levels of focus to different body parts.
It is always so fascinating to talk with you. I love our chats. I'm looking forward to your coverage of Paris coming up. And thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Don't forget to get your live show tickets or get on the web waitlist for in-person tickets. And we will both be here on Friday for Behind the Scenes. So we have so much to discuss. So if you guys aren't already Club Gym Nerd members, you get to join us live, ask questions live, or we answer questions that you send in to us at gymcastic@gmail.com, or you put on the forum. If you get a special VIP section in the forum. And make sure to set your podcast to download wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss anything. But until Friday at noon Pacific, remember to take off on gay, split on rights. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on Friday at noon Pacific.